Today I want to talk about jigsaw puzzle pieces, but not really. I just want to talk about connection. And the fact is that because our family is seriously into jigsaw puzzles, one of the things that happens is that, when you get that one little piece that looks like it'll connect and then it doesn't really connect, and so you're like, no, that can't be it, but it almost looks perfect. And then that dreaded feeling comes in when you're like, wait a minute, what if this particular puzzle that we purchased is going to be missing a piece or won't connect properly, that one last piece or something. You always have that one thing if you're into jigsaw puzzles like we are. But the thing is that human beings have been created for connection. God created us for a desire, to have a desire for connection, for intimacy with other people, for community. So like those jigsaw puzzle pieces, we are trying to connect properly with other human beings because that's how we've been created. What happens is that a lot of us, many of us, we lack the proper relational tools to properly connect with other people for one reason or another, for the way, maybe we were raised, maybe our experiences. We lack those tools that would help us connect in a healthy way, being able to set boundaries and being able to connect with people in a vulnerable way that will give other people their voice and have our voice heard as well. And so because many of us lack those tools, we end up feeling lonely, maybe depressed and isolated. And as believers, what happens is that I believe, actually, I'm going to say it this way, we're coming out of a Christian culture that tells us that we cannot have bad days. We're coming out of a culture that tells us that we have to be okay 100% of the time. And so for many, many years as believers, we've been told to stuff our feelings down, and put on that happy face, and joy has to, even if it's not authentic, you have to have joy. And so we've learned, or we've been taught to suppress. As Christians, we've been taught to pretend and to suppress a lot of these feelings of loneliness and depression and isolation. And so when we begin to feel that way, we ignore these feelings. But the truth is that Jesus knows our feelings. He already knows what we're going through. But it's more than that. He desires wholeness for us. He doesn't want us to just be spiritually whole or even just physically whole. He wants our emotions, our feelings to also experience redemption. But we can't do that if we are ignoring our feelings, if we aren't being authentic and real with the way that we're struggling. We won't have the capacity to even ask the Lord for help in these areas. And He wants to encourage us, and He wants freedom for us in these areas. But unless we become real and unless we are authentic with these feelings, we won't be able to accept that encouragement or accept what He is wanting for us and what His desire is for us. So today, if you are listening to this message and you are struggling, you're a Christian and you're struggling with isolation and with loneliness, and maybe you're one of those who, like me, lacks those tools to connect properly. And so we, again, sometimes are feeling very isolated. There is, something that I'm going to tell you to do. I'm going to not tell you. That sounds kind of harsh. I will suggest, because this is what I've had to do, and this is the only thing that I've found actually works. I want you to sit with those feelings for a little bit. I don't want you to push them down. I don't want you to pretend that they're not there. I don't want you to dismiss them, because that's never really worked. Never worked for me. It's probably never worked for you. Dismissing something is not the way to deal with it. And so there are reasons, right, for our inability to connect properly and in a healthy way with others. There are root issues there, and those are the things that the Lord wants to deal with. When we get to those root issues, we'll be able to work through them with the Lord, and we'll be able to experience life to a fuller level, the way that we're meant to experience life. But we can't do that, again, unless we sit with these feelings, unless we begin to recognize them, and unless we are real with ourselves and with the Lord. Even though He already knows it, we need to come to Him in humility. And we need to come to Him saying, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going through. And hold on to those feelings for just a little bit so that you can actually experience them and experience them in an authentic way. And then ask Holy Spirit to come into the core of these feelings, to come into those areas. Invite Him in, and then trust Him that this time it's going to be different, because you're deciding that it's going to be different, and because you're being vulnerable and authentic for the first time. And so because there is authenticity now, when Holy Spirit comes into that space, into that pain, into that loneliness, something is going to change. And we need to trust Him with the process, because it is a process. And in that process, Holy Spirit may guide you to a counselor, to a therapist, to maybe some inner healing sessions, that's okay. And maybe Holy Spirit will guide you to people that are around you that maybe you kind of never really thought about, but they love you. And they've been praying for you. And maybe He'll highlight some of those people for you so that you can approach them about this. Or maybe Holy Spirit wants to begin at that moment, like when Elijah's servant looked and saw a cloud the size of a fist in the midst of a drought. And Elijah knew immediately what was coming. And it was going to be an amazing turnaround for that drought. That drought was going to end. And for you, brother, for you, sister, it is going to mean that your spiritual drought will come to an end. Even if you're not experiencing it right at the moment, just having your spiritual eyes opened by the Lord through the work of the Spirit, for you to see what's in store for you to be able to start dreaming, for you to be able to look forward to something that you can't possibly even imagine right now. That is part of the ministry of the Holy Spirit to you, and that may be the very first step that you need in order to continue taking the next one and the next one. And as He guides you, as He infuses hope in your life, trust Him. Trust Him with the following step. And be gentle with yourself. Be patient with yourself. But trust Him and take heart and be courageous and fierce in listening to the Spirit and in following His lead. So I'm going to pray for you right now. I'm going to pray that Holy Spirit would take your heart, and that if you're being authentic and if you're being real with Holy Spirit right now at this moment, that He's going to take that authenticity. He's going to take your openness and your willingness for this time, for at this very moment, for it to be different. because that is what you desire. And the Lord's going to honor that desire. And so, Holy Spirit, I just pray that right now you would give the person who is opening their heart up to you, being authentic, you would give them fierce courage through the power of your Spirit to take that first step, to listen, to heed your voice, and to follow through on what you are asking them to do next. I just pray courage, and I pray protection, and I just pray even hope would be infused even right now. And again, that they would see, just like Elijah's servant saw that fist-sized cloud coming in the midst of a drought, standing in as a promise of what was to come, that you would infuse hearts right now that need hope. And I just pray this in your name, Jesus. And I thank you for what you're going to do. Okay, I am going to ask you to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and to stay tuned for the next video. I pray you have a blessed week. I pray that you step out in confidence and in spiritual courage, and that you receive the blessing that you are contending for. See you soon.